missing case of Maura Murray. In February, she will have been missing 20 years. It's one of the most infamous missing person cases in the true crime community, one of the wildest, twistiest cases. But the story has kind of taken on a life of its own. It's gotten kind of owned by the internet. And
she crashed her car on a dark, empty road in the middle of winter. A man stopped to help her. She told him she was fine. And in the 10 minutes it took for police to arrive, she vanished into thin air. No footprints leading away. No blood. No struggle. Just an empty car, a spilled bottle of wine, and a girl who has not been seen for more than 20 years. This is the story of Maura Murray, and by the end of this video, you are going to understand why this case still keeps investigators, journalists, and armchair detectives up at night. Maura Murray was 21 years old in February of 2004. She was a nursing student at the University of Massachusetts Amherst, smart, athletic, and disciplined. She had even spent time as a cadet at West Point before transferring. On paper, she looked like a young woman with her whole life ahead of her. But underneath that surface, something was clearly wrong in the days before she disappeared. Just a few days earlier, she had been involved in a minor car accident near West Point while visiting her father. Around the same time, she broke down emotionally at her campus security job after a phone call with her older sister, who was struggling with alcoholism. Coworkers say she went silent and had to be walked back to her dorm. Then came February 9, 2004, the day everything changed. That afternoon, Maura sent an email to her professors saying she needed to leave for a week because of a death in the family. Investigators later confirmed something chilling. There was no death in the family. Nobody had died. It was a lie, and to this day, nobody knows why she told it. Around the same time, she withdrew almost all the money in her bank account from an ATM, nearly $300. Then she stopped at a liquor store and bought alcohol, printed out MapQuest directions to Burlington, Vermont, and packed up her belongings as if she were going somewhere and not planning to come back anytime soon. She never told anyone where she was actually headed. By early evening, she was driving north on Route 112, a long, dark, winding road that cuts through the White Mountains of New Hampshire. It was cold, it was snowy, and it was isolated. And that is where, at some point that evening, her black Saturn spun out and crashed into a snowbank. A local school bus driver named Butch Atwood happened to be driving home and saw her car. He pulled over to check on her. According to accounts of that night, he asked if she was okay, and she told him she was just shaken up. He offered to call the police for her. She said no, please don't. She had already called AAA for a tow. That was one of the last things anyone ever heard her say. Atwood left, but something didn't sit right with him, so not long after, he called 911 himself anyway to report the crash, just in case. A nearby resident had also spotted the car and called it in around the same time. Dispatch sent a police officer named Cecil Smith to the scene. And here is where the case starts to unravel into pure mystery. Officer Smith did not arrive until around 7:46 in the evening, roughly 10 to 18 minutes after the first calls came in. And when he finally pulled up, the car was locked, the keys were nowhere to be found, and Maura Murray was gone. Think about that for a second. This is a rural stretch of New Hampshire in the freezing cold at night in February. There is nowhere to just casually walk to. No stores, no houses close by, nothing but woods and mountains in every direction. And yet somewhere in that narrow window of time, a 21-year-old woman with no coat, no real supplies, simply disappeared without leaving behind a single solid clue. Inside the car, police found her belongings almost completely untouched. Her schoolbooks, a stuffed animal, a box of wine that had spilled inside the vehicle, an empty beer bottle, and blank accident report forms that she had apparently picked up earlier that day from a police station near her college, almost like she was preparing for the very crash that was about to happen. Her cell phone, her backpack, and her wallet were missing, which suggests she took those with her when she left the CAR. So this wasn't necessarily someone who was dragged away against her will in a panic. This was someone who may have deliberately grabbed her essentials before walking off into the night. And then there's the detail that true crime fans still argue about to this day. A rag was found stuffed into the car's tailpipe. Her father later said that was actually a trick he had taught her, a way to stop exhaust smoke from leaking into the cabin if the muffler was faulty. Innocent explanation, sure. But combined with everything else, it adds one more strange little piece to a puzzle that refuses to come together. When search teams arrived in the following days, they brought in dogs, helicopters, thermal imaging, snowmobiles, the whole operation. And the dogs did pick something up. They tracked her scent moving east from the crash site for about 100 yards, and then the trail just stopped. Investigators have said that kind of abrupt end to a scent trail often suggests the person got into a vehicle. If that's true, it means someone picked her up that night, whether she wanted them to or not. So who could that have been? This is where the theories start multiplying. There's a witness account describing what looked like a police SUV parked nose-to-nose with a dark sedan near the crash site, minutes before Officer Smith's official arrival. If that timeline holds up, it means another vehicle, one that has never been identified, was already at the scene before law enforcement got there. To this day, nobody knows who that driver was or why they were never found. Then there's the theory that has haunted her family for 2 decades, that Maura was abducted by someone she may or may not have known. A private investigator hired by her family years later concluded that she was likely a victim of foul play, and even suggested she may have willingly gotten into a vehicle with someone at first, not realizing what she was walking into. Her family's investigation pointed to a mysterious drifter who was known to be in the area around that time, a man with a documented history of alleged violence against women, who reportedly once encountered a stranded woman on the side of the road under eerily similar circumstances. That lead was passed on to authorities, but as of today, nobody has ever been publicly named as a suspect, let alone charged. On the other end of the spectrum, there's the theory that Maura simply walked away and started a new life. This idea gained traction because of everything she did in the hours before the crash. The fake story about a death in the family, emptying her bank account, buying alcohol, printing directions somewhere she had no real reason to go. Some investigators and authors have speculated she was overwhelmed, maybe facing legal trouble over a minor credit card fraud charge that could have jeopardized her nursing career, and that she staged her disappearance to escape the pressure of her life. It's a theory her father has firmly rejected. He has spent more than 20 years insisting his daughter did not walk away from her family. He believes she was taken and that she is dead. And then there's the coldest, saddest possibility of all, that she simply wandered off into the woods in the freezing cold, disoriented after the crash, and succumbed to hypothermia somewhere she was never found. New Hampshire in February is brutal. If she went off the road in the wrong direction, into dense, mountainous terrain, her remains could theoretically still be out there, hidden by decades of snow, undergrowth, and time. Over the years, there have been leads that briefly reignited hope. Cadaver dogs once reacted to a basement in a nearby home, and investigators sent carpet samples for testing, but nothing conclusive ever came from it. In 2021, bone fragments were discovered in New Hampshire, and for a moment, the internet exploded with speculation that this could finally be Maura. Investigators tested them and confirmed they were not connected to her case. Every single lead over more than 2 decades has ended the exact same way, with more questions and 0 answers. What makes this case so uniquely disturbing isn't just the disappearance itself, it's the timing. This happened in 2004, right at the edge of the internet era, right before social media completely changed how people consume true crime. It's often called one of the first major mysteries of the internet age, because it created this massive online community of amateur investigators, all combing through timelines, phone records, and witness statements, trying to solve what professional law enforcement could not. Her case was even featured on America's Most Wanted, and it drew comparisons to another eerily similar disappearance just 1 month later and only about 66 miles away, when a young woman named Brianna Maitland vanished under strikingly similar circumstances, her car found abandoned with no clear explanation. Police have said publicly there is no confirmed link between the two cases, but the parallels have never stopped fueling speculation. Maura's sister Julie has become the family's voice in recent years, keeping the case alive on platforms like TikTok, correcting misinformation, and pushing for the investigation to stay active. In 2022, the FBI issued a renewed national alert for information about Maura's case, and law enforcement has confirmed they still treat this as a potential homicide investigation, not simply a missing persons case that's been quietly closed. Every few years, a new tip comes in, a new patch of ground gets searched, a new basement gets checked with ground-penetrating radar. And every time, the answer is the same: nothing. So here we are, more than 2 decades later, and the questions from that freezing February night in 2004 remain exactly where they started. We know what happened up until 7:46 that evening. We know the how and we know the when. But the where and the why, the two things her family needs most, are still buried somewhere on that dark stretch of New Hampshire highway. Was she taken by someone in that mystery vehicle at the scene? Did she walk into those woods and never make it out? Or is she out there somewhere, alive, having built an entirely different life under a different name? Nobody knows. And until someone does, Maura Murray remains one of the most haunting unsolved disappearances in American history. If you have any theories of your own, drop them in the comments below, because after 20 years, sometimes it's the internet, not the investigators, that ends up cracking these cases wide open.